Hey everyone, Arcology's here. I thought I would do a quick tutorial on how I go about kind of creating a 90s Techstep bass or stab sound or kind of effects sound that you may hear in those 90s Techstep songs. I posted a couple of songs on YouTube the past month or so that uses the Amigo sampler VST and kind of they're all kind of 90s Techstep inspired tracks. And a lot of people asked like kind of how I went about getting those kind of crazy bass stabs and sounds and whatnot. So I thought I would just go ahead and share my workflow and process. This will be a pretty basic tutorial, but I think the key takeaway here for people who are interested in trying to get that sound is to really kind of keep it simple and focus on a 90s work and kind of a 90s inspired workflow and embracing 90s limitations. I think that's a really important way to kind of, or actually a really easy way to get kind of a 90s vibe. So yeah, if anything, if you take away anything from this tutorial, maybe the workflow will be something that you can try. Maybe you've never really thought about it. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. I've created a pretty basic sound in Serum. Serum is really easy synth to use. You can use Vital. You can use any synth that you want. The key here is to make kind of a cool sounding, a cool sound for your starting point. Back in the day, a lot of these producers, they would just kind of mess about with their synths and do different things and run them through different, guitar pedals and just do different things with them and constantly resample. So maybe they have a session where they're doing some sound design on an old kind of 80s analog synth and they're running it through some guitar distortion or a weird amp and recording sampling from the amp directly. It's that kind of stuff, right? So it's like constant resampling of sounds that you're doing and then doing something to those sounds and then resampling again. So it's resampling, 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 resampling. That's the way I look at it, and that's kind of the way I approach this 90s, this 90s workflow. Maybe you've never really thought about doing a lot of resampling in your workflow, but this may open your eyes and you may want to give it a shot and maybe you'll really like it. But anyways, we've got Serum here and it's a pretty basic sound. That's just an F note. We've got a sub oscillator here. This sub oscillator is just a sine wave. So I just have it direct out. This comes directly out of the synth, and that's what I want. If you don't have the sub on, you lose that sub frequency. So then I have two oscillators, oscillator A and oscillator B, the bass sound, right? So I'm pitching them down 3 octaves, both of them down 3 octaves. And then I have fine tune 12 here and then negative 24 here. If you want to use unison, you can. It certainly makes it sound a little bit more modern in my opinion. Nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it sounds cool, but maybe a bit too modern for my taste right now. So I'm just keeping it simple. Wavetable position, there's a modulator on that, that's LFO2. And so all this is doing, for people who don't know, it's running through this LFO speed is a quarter note, right? So through a quarter note, it goes through this little LFO. It's in envelope mode, so it's essentially just another envelope that it runs through. You can have it repeat. Yeah. You can see the wavetable position here. You can see this little blue mark. It's adjusting the wavetable a little bit, right? That's all it's doing. Same thing goes over here. Wavetable position getting modified or modulated. You can adjust it to your taste. We got a filter here. Serum's got a whole bunch of filters. I'm just using this phaser filter here. But by all means, again, the key here is experimentation. You can adjust the cutoff to taste. This is modulated with LFO1. You don't want to have it. No, I don't like that. So yeah, but you can again adjust modulations to your level. Pretty simple. Yeah, and that's the patch here, right? And we got some effects, nothing really crazy. Hyperdimension, truthfully, yes, it makes it sound a little bit more modern. This is kind of specific to Serum. Distortion, again, everybody knows what distortion is. This is a multi-band compressor, again, keeping that on there. The way I look at this effect, the way I look at sampling with effects is, back in the day, they probably would have used guitar pedals and kind of effects racks to run things through and resample, or even just, like I said, maybe even recording something from a guitar amp or something. It's like I don't want to add all these crazy choruses and and delay and reverb. I don't want that on my kind of source sound right now. I want to keep it very simple. And again, I think that's kind of, the 90s mentality, right? Like they may have had like 2 guitar pedals and like a quadriverb or something. And that's all they had. So I don't want to get too complex with this starting sample. So I'm keeping it basic. Modulation matrix, you can see everything here. Again, I'll share this project file and so people can mess around with the patch if they want. But again, this is pretty basic. But the only thing that's kind of different is I have this macro assigned to this warp knob here, which is you can choose what you want, like where you want that warp modulator to come from, and it's having the frequency modulation from oscillator B. And that's what I want, because if I want to automate this, I just map it to the macro because it's easy to find. And I can modulate that and kind of get some movement in my bass sound. And that's kind of what I want to do. So yeah, that's the Serum patch, right? Pretty basic. The key here is once you make this patch, or once you make a patch that you like, you can go through and change up your wavetables and change up your values. There are thousands of wavetables online for free that you can download for Serum. And really just endless possibilities are right there that you can do whatever you want. We'll just keep it as Misfits, and I think it was on MB Saw. There we go. Okay, yeah. So we have our Serum patch here. And all I'm doing in this column, right, I'm just going to solo this track here, triggering an F5 note. That's it. That's all I'm doing. This little information over here, that's that macro one being automated. You can see that here when I hit the play button. You can see that's all that this is doing. All right. So this is my starting sound, okay? I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Let me adjust the filter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sample this, right? So this is my starting point. Instead of going in here into my mix and adding like 50 plugins to get a starting sound and to make it all crazy and modulated, I'm using a resampling workflow. So I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to go ahead and render out this to a new slot. Okay, so now I have my resulting sample right here. Okay, that's the Serum patch just rendered to a wave. And now what I want to do is I have these other tracks. This is just, if I were doing a sampling session, this is kind of what I would do. I'm going to create multiple tracks here. So track 6 is my Serum, my starting point. Track 7 is, we'll just call it Resample 1. We'll just call it Re1. All right. And what I have on here is Filter Shaper XL. Now, you may not have Filter Shaper. It's not a big deal if you don't. The takeaway here is the resampling aspect of it. The resampling is the whole point of this tutorial. So if you don't have Filter Shaper, maybe you have something else, or maybe you have the Cable Guy's Shaper Box. You're going to have something that you can do. You can even do it in Ableton. All this is doing is just has an interesting way of just kind of like modulating these 2 filters here. We have a warm low pass and a warm high pass. That's all it's doing. And it's following these envelopes. It's just like a fun way to make it kind of a cool sound. But the key here and the takeaway is that I'm taking that resulting sample that I just sampled from the Serum track here. All right. Oh, whoops, I didn't. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to render this out. All right, because I want to resample it. So I have my resulting sample here. And the next step, I'm going to go to Resampling 2. All right, in Resampling 2, I want to close this out for you. I want to run that resulting sample through this track, which is Infiltrator, just running a basic Enhancer 1 patch that I'm pretty sure is just a preset that comes with it. This kind of fattens up the bass. And again, if you don't have Infiltrator, you can use a distortion plugin. You can use Ableton the saturation tool, like whatever you can use anything. The point is just to resample it to kind of make the bass fatter or make it sound like you want it to sound. Maybe try something cool, different. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sample this out now. I've got my sample here. Okay, so with this sample, I'm going to go into my next track, Resampling 3. And in this one, I have Isotope Alloy. Alloy is an awesome plugin. They don't make it anymore. I think some people said they turned it like essentially turned into Neutron, maybe the Neutron suite or whatever. Alloy 2 is one of my favorite plugins, and it's probably one of the main reasons I will probably continue to use these old Mac OS computers for my main music production computer. But yeah, big fan of it. It's just doing some EQ. It's cutting out some mids here. It's boosting the sub and the kind of the high upper mids, and then I have some multi-band compression. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that new sample that we just had through this track, through the Alloy track. Let me go up to it. Sorry. There we go. All right. Obviously, it kills the mids a little bit, but it makes it real fat. Actually, I'm going to run through it again. So I'm going to take that sample that I just did. I'm going to sample it again. So now this is my resulting sample right here. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to sequence this into a bass line. So I go over my bass track right here, turn it on, and I've already kind of sequenced the bass line here just because I was testing out, but I'm going to go ahead and resequence it. So I have my, I'm on slot instrument 22. That's my resulting sample for my resampling process. That's my final sample from that. I'm just going to resample it. I'm sorry, I'm just going to resequence it here. Okay, so we have McAdee here, Infiltrator again. I believe I made a preset called Tech Enhancer. I believe that's based off of just another preset that was in here with some modifications. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and play this bass line, and you're going to see okay, so I have a pretty cool sounding bass line. The key here, I'm going to go ahead and resample this. Now, my resulting sample is this. Let's go ahead and normalize it. I'm going to go over to my master channel here. And so if I listen to this sample, right? And so that's the key for me, right? I want to have this. This is my end game here. This is what I want to have at the end of my sampling session. Because what I can do now is I can use Renoise's sample offset command to jump around the sample when I'm sequencing a bass line, or if I'm making other samples. Maybe I want to like turn each of these essentially transient kind of bass hits into a new sample. And that's all it is. That's all I want. And to me, this is what the resampling workflow does. It allows you to kind of just have fun running these things through different sounds and sources. And you may have some external gear and some external effects boxes or guitar pedals or synthesizers. And if you kind of focus on a resampling workflow, you may have fun with the end result, just depending on what your typical kind of production style is. I really like this because one thing that I run into a lot is if I'm not working with samples that I've created, if I'm working with, if I'm just using the VSTs and I'm automating things within the VSTs, I often find myself constantly tweaking things and really never being pleased with what I'm working with. And if I'm able to create a sound that I like I really like this sample, I can do a lot of cool stuff with this, I think, especially in Renoise or in a hardware sampler. And if I'm able to commit to this sound, so now I can just start with this and just run with it. I don't need to have the option. I don't have the option. I don't have any kind of option paralysis where I have the ability to endlessly tweak these sounds, even though you can still kind of constantly resample it and run it through new filters. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to work with this and move on to the next step. It's a great way for me to stay productive. So yeah, anyways, I hope you guys got something out of this. Really, just the resampling process is key, and that whole workflow has kind of got a very 90s feel to it, because you're working with limitations and you're committing to sounds, and you're just it really experimentation is incredibly rewarded with this workflow too. I got this library of thousands of these sounds, all different and all crazy and different distortion with different effects and different plugs. It's a lot of fun. But anyways, that's the key: resampling. Peace.